right? So welcome to the first class of EMTL. So this EMTL actually, this is one particular subject. Many people actually will feel difficulty about it because actually it involves a lot of mathematical concepts and the fundamental physics also you have to be aware of it. So that is the reason actually many people feel a little bit of difficulty about this particular topic. Now proceeding further actually, so this topic actually is very important for only civil services examination or engineering service examination or the GATE examination or whatever it may be. For every exam actually, this is actually one of the very important and tough topic, right? Especially from ECE people actually it is very tough. And for EEE people actually only the portion of the syllabus that is there, that's actually they may not feel difficulty about it, but most of the difficulty that lies in the category of the Maxwell's equations onwards, that is especially the ECE syllabus, right? Now let us see what is the syllabus specified by Now first actually let us go through the syllabus, then actually we can come back to the weightage. And this syllabus actually, so this is so Maxwell's equation. So it started with Maxwell's equation. So I'll just enlarge this a little bit, right? Yeah. So Maxwell's equations. So this is where actually we start with. But actually to understand the Maxwell's equations and the importance of it, we have to be aware of the electromagnetic fields as well. So that's why actually there are three different portions we can say in this entire syllabus, but only the third portion actually which was specified by UPSC. One portion is the fundamental mathematical concepts that lies, so that actually you will be able to understand the topic. So that is one important aspect which anyway I will cover to an elaborate level. And the second important aspect is, so the fundamental knowledge of the mathematics actually it gives an understanding about the electromagnetic fields, but not about the Maxwell's equations. And the electromagnetic fields and so magnetic and electric fields together actually there are certain equations, so which we call this as the Maxwell's equations. There are 4 different Maxwell's equations are there. Those equations actually are derived from the electromagnetic fields. And the analysis of the fields actually, so analysis of the Maxwell's equations which leads to the transmission lines. So understanding the mathematical aspect and studying the studying the electromagnetic fields, and then actually the implementation of these electromagnetic fields with the help of the Maxwell's equations to understand the wave equation. So these are the 3 different sections, and the wave equation extension itself is the transmission line. So wave equation and the transmission lines are exactly one and the same. There is no difference. Now if you notice the syllabus, whatever is mentioned here it is. So this is of the Maxwell's equations it started with, and then actually the wave propagation in bounded medium, and then actually boundary conditions, reflection and refraction of the plane waves, and transmission line. So traveling and standing waves, impedance matching, Smith chart. So this is the only syllabus. It is very short and simple syllabus, but understanding this short syllabus is actually very complicated. It's not that easy like other subjects like control systems, or actually if you take measurements and all, right? So all such subjects are very easy subjects, so that actually you can study and understand on your own. But actually this subject actually it demands somebody's guidance, then only actually you'll be able to understand this. So Smith charts actually you may not get any questions from the Smith chart, but actually anyway we will go through the previous year questions. There itself actually we will get to know which is the important area what he is focusing for, right? We will go through that as well. So this is actually very simple and short syllabus. Maxwell's equations, uniform plane wave, transmission lines, and Smith charts. That's it, right? And then actually we'll see the previous year questions as well. And the weightage, if you notice, so this topic is part of the paper 1, and if you notice the weightage is very short. So this is of EM theory is only 10 marks, 20 marks, total of 30 marks. And if you notice only in section A of paper 1 it was given. So section A of paper 1, EM theory, right? So this is in 2015. In 2016, so this was given for 10 marks, 20 marks, and 30 marks also, right? So 10, 20, 30, total actually 60 marks was given in 2016. That means actually you cannot ignore. So in 2015 it's only for 30 marks, but in the later stage actually it is of 60 marks. And in 2017, so this is again for the 50 marks, but if you notice there is a difference here. So 10 marks in the question number 1 and 20 marks in question number 2. And in section 2, actually, it was given. That is the section B also. There is a question number 7, actually, there is a question that is related to the EMTL. So that means actually, it's not a rule that actually it has to be given only on the section A. It might be given on section B as well. That means actually, you cannot take this as a choice. So that is the meaning, underlying meaning, right? And then in 2018, so this was again given for the 50 marks. So 20 marks and mandatory question actually it was not given. So in question number 2 actually it is 20. Question number 5 here actually it was made mandatory. If you notice again actually this was part of section B because it started in question number 5. So it's not a rule that actually this question has to come only for section A or section B. So that actually keep it in mind. And then actually 20 marks actually it was given in question number 7. So total actually 50 marks again. And 2019. So this is actually 10 marks, 10 marks, 10 marks and 20 marks. So total actually 50 marks. But if you notice, so mandatory question actually it was given only question number 1, but question number 5 actually it was not given. But small portions are actually distributed across all other questions. Got it? So this is about. That means actually in total, the summary is actually it was straight away given for the 50 marks. That is the summary. So in all the years actually except for 1 year, every year actually it was flat 50. 1 year it is 60, another year it is 30. But 30 is actually only in 2015. Then onwards actually it was increased the weightage. Now it is mandatorily 50 marks. And then actually, so the questions actually we can see. See, so this is actually in 2015, or actually we will go from bottom to top. So in 2019, the questions, if you notice, two extensive homogeneous isotropic dielectrics meet on a plane at z is equal to 0 for z greater than 0. And epsilon r1 is 4, and for z less than 0, and epsilon r2 is equal to 3, a uniform electric field. So this is a uniform electric field, and E1 is equal to 5ax minus 2ay plus 3az kilovolts per meter. So exists for z greater than or equal to 0. So here actually there is a boundary surface between two different places. So that is actually z is equal to 0 is the boundary, where z less than 0 there is one dielectric, and z greater than 0 there is one more dielectric, and there is a uniform plane wave which is traveling in the xyz direction. So there is a slant direction actually it was given, and the strength of that uniform plane wave is actually 5ax minus 2ay plus 3az. So that is kilovolts per meter, and this is actually only so z greater than or equal to 0. And then actually for z, so E2 is E2 for z less than or equal to 0 he asked for. So E1 actually it was given, E2 we need to find out. That means actually if the wave is given for the positive side of the z, we need to be identifying on the negative side of z actually what is the value of the electric field. So this is actually straight away uniform plane wave. And then actually the energy densities in joules per meter cube in both the dielectrics. So this is actually there is a theorem called Poynting vector. So that Poynting vector actually we can use to identify the energy density, right? So this is actually the uniform plane wave. And the next one is a lossless line has a characteristic impedance of 50 ohms and is terminated in a load resistance of 75 ohms. The line is energized by a generator which has an output impedance of 50 ohms and an open circuit output voltage of 30 volts RMS. The line is assumed to be 2.25 wavelength long and determine the output impedance, the magnitude of the instantaneous load, the instantaneous power delivered to the load. So this is actually the transmission lines. That is the fundamental question. So this is the transmission line related problem. He asked us to find out the output impedance, magnitude of the instantaneous load, and also instantaneous power delivered. So this is actually straight away from circuit analysis, or the entire circuit analysis is derived from this understanding. So this is the transmission lines. Got it? And then the third question is a two-dimensional electric field is given by x square ax plus x into ay volts per meter. Show that this electric field cannot arise from a static distribution of charge. So two-dimensional electric field was given. Show that the electric field cannot arise from a static distribution of the charge. So that means actually it has to be arrived only from the moving charges, not from the static charges. So provided if this is the variation. And then actually A transmission line of length 5 meters is tested at a frequency of 50 megahertz. When the far end of the line is short circuited, the impedance measured at the sending end is of 4.61 ohms. And when the far end is open circuited, the impedance becomes 1390 ohms. Calculate the characteristic impedance and propagation constant of the line. So this is actually again related to the transmission lines, right? So open circuit impedance and short circuit impedance. So this is actually even related to the ABCD parameters as well. And then actually an aeroplane flies over the surface of the ocean for which sigma is equal to 4s per meter. So 4 Siemens per meter, that is. And ER is equal to 81 and mu r is equal to 1. The aeroplane transmits the signal in the form of 1 megahertz plane wave having an electric field intensity of 1000 volts per meter and propagating vertically downward. If a submarine requires a minimum signal of 20 microvolts per meter for adequate reception, determine the maximum communication depth of the submarine. So this is also actually related to the uniform plane wave. So this actually communication depth actually we need to be calculating it. That is actually when the surface it meets, right? So automatically actually it is going to be attenuated. Now how far it can go further within the water, that can be calculated based on this. So the conductivity actually will not allow the signal to travel from that location. So, right. So if you notice actually all the questions are related to only two different sections. Either is the transmission lines or is the uniform plane. So do you think anything else is there in this? Right. So are there any specific book for this particular one? So, but actually whatever the book you follow, you should be able to answer everything. I specifically follow William Heath. So I like that book. So that's why actually I follow that particular book. But if you like any other book, you can do that. But these models will be covered. And in 2018, a low loss transmission line has characteristic impedance of Z0 is equal to 70 ohms and is terminated another impedance of 115 minus J80 ohms. The wavelength of the line is 2.5 meters. Find SWR, that is the standing wave ratio, and maximum and minimum line impedance. So that is the Z1 max and Z1 minimum. And if the input, so this is the first problem. So this is straight away the transmission line. And then actually, if the input impedance of a short and open circuited transmission line of length 1.5 meter, or ZSC is equal to minus J78 ohms and ZOC is equal to minus J90 ohms respectively, determine the characteristic impedance Z0 and the propagation constant gamma of the line. So this is a straightforward problem. So you can see a lot of example problems related like this. Derive the Maxwell's equations for time varying magnetic fields based on Ampere's circuital law. A parallel plate capacitor with plate area of 5 centimeters square and plate separation of 3 mm has a voltage of 50 sine 10 cube into T volts applied to its plates. Calculate the displacement current assuming E is equal to 2 epsilon naught. Now if you notice actually this is not the Maxwell's equation. So prior to the Maxwell's equation, that is electromagnetic fields actually a little bit actually it goes inside. That is because actually he asks us to derive the Maxwell's equations for time varying fields. Got it? A little bit of understanding of the magnetic fields and the electric fields also needed to solve this particular one. And then actually a traveling wave, a traveling E field in the free space of amplitude 100 volts per meter strikes a perfect dielectric as shown in the figure 7a. Determine the value of ET. So ET somewhere he has mentioned, right? Free space. Yeah, ED is the free space, right? So he asks us to calculate the value of ET for the values given as epsilon r is equal to 20 and mu r is equal to 1 and sigma equal to 0. So this is also actually directly uniform plane wave. And this is a uniform plane wave in air partially reflects from the surface of a material whose properties are unknown. Measurement of the electric field in front of the interface region yields a 1.5 meter spacing between maxima, with the first maximum occurring at 0.75 meters from the interface. A standing wave ratio of 5 is measured. Determine the intrinsic impedance eta W of the unknown material. So this is also actually related to the uniform plane wave. In this case actually, so this entire description actually related to finding out the wavelength. Lambda value actually it was described with a complicated words. But once you identify the lambda, you can just easily calculate the impedance value. Got it? And then So if you notice actually in this particular one, right? So every question is related to either transmission line or of uniform plane wave. So nothing more than that. And one question actually, he asks us to derive the Maxwell's equations. In this 2017, show that for a distortionless transmission line, the attenuation constant alpha does not depend on frequency, whereas the phase constant beta depends linearly on it. So he asks us to identify, show that the distortionless transmission line, the attenuation constant alpha does not depend on frequency. So that means actually alpha is independent, whereas the phase constant beta depends linearly on it. So this actually, so S is equal to sigma plus j omega, we take it, right? So sigma actually we take as the real number. There is no dependency of the frequency. Here actually we will prove that ys has to be equal to sigma plus j omega. That actually we can prove based on this. Got it? What is the level of these questions? So the level of these questions, if you notice, a little higher than graduation, a little higher than graduation. Or actually, I don't know the standard what you are going to study as part of ECE, but EEE actually it is a little advanced because we don't study this. But ECE, I know that actually this is part of your syllabus. But ECE, right, the standard of the questions also, I can see that actually a little higher than the graduation level. But nevertheless, actually, if you have a little bit of understanding on the mathematics, you should be able to solve all these questions. Got it? And then the second question is, what is meant by an infinite transmission line? Also explain the term electrical length of a transmission line. In what units is it measured? So this is a new word, electrical length. Okay, anyway, so maybe actually in the textbook somewhere we will find this word, we can see that. Determine the electrical length of a 20-meter long transmission line operating at 1 megahertz. If mu is equal to 0.7 u, it's not mu, it is u, which is the velocity of the wave, 0.7 times of the light velocity on the line. Take c is equal to 3 into 10 power 8. So this is also related to the wave, and the transmission line also it is there. The electric field and magnetic field in free space is given by E and H values are given. Express the fields in phasor form and determine the constants H0 and beta such that these fields satisfy the Maxwell's equation. The permeability and permittivity of the free space are 4 pi into 10 power minus 7 henries per meter and 8.854 into 10 power minus 12 farads per meter respectively. So this is also direct question from the William Heath, I think. So this is actually direct question. And in 2016, derive the expression for the Maxwell's equations in integral form from Ampere's law. So this actually it was asked twice. So that means actually understanding the Maxwell's equations and deriving the Maxwell's equations is very important. And the second one is actually a transmission line has the following parameters. So ZL is equal to 200 minus J200 ohms. Z0 is equal to 200 ohms. Determine the voltage, standing wave ratio and reflection coefficients of the line. So he asked us for the voltage wave, the standing wave ratio and the reflection coefficient he asked us to calculate. So directly actually we have the formulas to calculate and we will derive the formulas as well. And you can calculate that. So write the significance of the Smith chart. So if you notice, coming to the graphical techniques as and when it is required, right? So he will be specifically asking only the theoretical questions related to that graph. Now here actually Smith chart, if you notice, the question actually is a theoretical question. Write the significance of the Smith chart. That means actually what are all the important points that we need to know as part of Smith charts. We need to identify and then actually write it in a proper manner. But actually no questions will be asked related to the problems of this Smith chart, because actually you have to go through the Smith chart and then actually identify the points and the values, and based on that calculation actually is very tough. But the basic derivations of this Smith chart actually we need to do, like actually M circles, N circles, all such kind of things actually we can derive. But the derivations actually we can get it, but no graphical questions you can expect from Smith chart, right? And then actually find the length of X of the 100 ohms transmission line, which converts a load impedance of Z is equal to 100 plus J 100 ohms to a pure resistance. Also find the value of the resistance Rx, assuming standing wave ratio is, voltage standing wave ratio is 2.6. So this actually question related to the transmission line. And then determine the propagation constant gamma of the material having mu r is equal to 1, ER is equal to 8 and sigma is equal to 0.25 picosiemens per meter if the wave frequency is 1.6 megahertz. So he asks us to calculate the propagation constant value and then actually find the skin depth delta at a frequency of 1.6 megahertz in aluminum, where sigma is given as 38.2. So this is small m, I think, millisiemens per meter. And mu r is equal to 1. Also find gamma and wave velocity u. So he asked, so again actually this is also related to the wave propagation. If a propagating wave in free space has a potential gradient at any point x, y, z, yes, E is equal to minus I minus 2 root 3j plus 3k e power minus j 0.04 pi. So root 3x minus y minus 3z and volts per meter. Then determine the vertical direction of propagation, the wavelength of the propagating wave, and the frequency of the propagating wave, the phase and velocity. So velocity and phase velocity vector. So what are the apparent velocities and wavelengths along x, y, and z direction? So basically, actually, he asks us to calculate the basic parameters of the wave or the properties of the wave in 3 different specific directions, x, y, z directions, based on the equation what it was given. This is purely a mathematical question. So nowhere related to the physics or actually the EMTL, purely the mathematics part. And this is actually, if you notice again, the questions are actually either Maxwell's equations or the transmission lines or the waves. So only wave and its properties. Transmission line and its properties related to the standing wave ratio, reflection and refraction coefficient, propagation constant, and the phase constant, wavelength, or the frequency, or the velocity. So these are all the only parameters. If you notice in all the questions, whatever we have seen till now, these are all the only aspects actually he asked for, right? Other than that, actually no questions or no extra from this particular one, right? And then actually 2015, a voltage of a wave traveling in a non-magnetic medium is given by the equation. E is given as 4 times of sine 2 pi into 10 power 7 t minus 0.8x volts per meter. Find epsilon r and eta, the time average power carried by the wave. So this is also a straightforward problem. So you can expect, so you can see a lot of example problems related to this even in William Hague as well. A distortionless line has Z0 is equal to 60 ohms, alpha equal to 20 milliamperes per meter, and U is equal to 0.6 c, where c is the velocity of the wave in vacuum. Find RL, GC, and lambda at 100 megahertz. So this is actually the question related to the transmission line. So only 2 questions actually was asked that year, but rest of the years actually 50 marks actually you can expect. So this is about the complete syllabus and the standard of questions and the type of questions actually where you need to focus. So everything is actually we have got from this particular single document, right? So do you have any questions related to this? So reference book actually I personally follow William Hague because I feel it is convenient, right? William Hague, no yes. Electromagnetic fields. And transmission lines. Right? So this is the book actually I follow. I teach from this particular book only. So if you have any other book, actually that is also fine. That's not an issue. As long as you are clear with the concept, so you should be able to answer. Got it? So any other questions? Any mathematical prerequisites? Yeah. So there is a requirement. One is actually the 3D geometry. We need to understand to a greater extent. It is very, very important to understand. And that too actually not only Cartesian, you need to understand cylindrical, spherical coordinates as well. Right, so this is actually fundamental requirement, and the basics of the physics actually we need to understand the wave and its properties. So this is actually very, very important. This makes a lot of confusion. Wave and its properties actually we need to understand, and then actually as I already actually explained, the vector calculus. So at least for understanding the fields actually we need this. So to understand the electromagnetic fields, the vector calculus also you have to be very good at. So then actually you'll be able to understand each and every aspect. So any other thing? Okay, fine. Now actually I'll just clarify the first thing actually. So this one, 3D geometry I'll take up. So we need to understand what is a three-dimensional geometry, and especially what is a Cartesian coordinate system, what is a cylindrical coordinate system, what is the spherical coordinate system, and to along with this actually you have to have a deep understanding of the vectors. So that is also very, very important. So deep understanding of the vectors is actually very much needed. So if you are not having the knowledge of the vectors, then actually understanding this topic is actually almost impossible. So that you have to keep it in mind. Along with this, all these things. Now, what is this three-dimensional geometry is? So any geometry actually, it's a kind of mathematical language to identify the location of a single point. So the location of the single point, how you wanted to describe, that is a geometry. Suppose actually, if I need only one quantity to uniquely identify a single point, then that is called as a one-dimensional geometry. Suppose actually, if I say that actually, so let us say there is a road like this, and actually so it started from Delhi and then actually going to Agra. Now, if there is only one road, then actually, if I ask you how to go to Agra from Delhi, then actually you will simply say that actually from here actually you need to travel for a distance of maybe 100 kilometers so that actually you will reach Agra. Now here actually we are not talking anything related to the directions, because actually there is only one direction that is available. Hence actually if you simply say that actually on this road travel for 100 kilometers, you will reach Agra. So that is a single statement. And I am talking about only one number. Let us say this is of 100 kilometers. So we are talking about the length. Now this kind of system where a single quantity is sufficient enough to identify the entire description of that, then that is called as a one-dimensional geometry, right? And then actually the two-dimensional geometry. Suppose actually on this particular board, if I ask the question, where is 3D is located? If I ask that question, where is 3D located on this particular board? Now in that case actually you need to have at least two different values to identify the location of this 3D on this particular board. That means you need to say that actually starting from this bottom corner, you travel for a distance of maybe half meter, and then actually travel for a distance of 1 meter. Then actually you will be able to reach that 3D location. Now here if you notice, starting point actually we need to fix it first. Even here also one-dimensional geometry, we started from Delhi. So and we are going to Agra. So that starting point actually we have to take as the reference. And that reference point actually from there we start explaining it. Now from here actually we have to travel for half meter here, 1 meter here. Then actually you will be able to reach this particular point. And here we are talking about two different values. Hence actually this is a two-dimensional geometry, right? Now suppose actually in this particular room, where is the location of the fan? If I ask that question, then actually you need to be describing three different values to identify the fan location uniquely. How? If I start from the left bottom corner of the room, then actually travel for a distance of 2.5 meters in the direction of x, and then it will travel for a distance of again 1.5 meter in the direction of the y, and then it will travel for a height of let us say 3 meters, so that actually you will reach the fan location. So you are requiring three different points so that actually you can uniquely identify the location. Hence actually we call that as a three-dimensional geometry. So these three unique points actually, unique values actually, which will specifically points to a single location in the entire three-dimensional space, which we call this as a three-dimensional geometry. Now these three, as long as you are able to uniquely convey the information, that is up to you how do you want it to describe it. But the fundamental characteristics actually that we need to follow. The fundamental characteristics is, so one important point is origin is fixed. That means the origin, when you wanted to fix it, the origin actually it is having a specific characteristic. Suppose actually if I ask a question, right, where is your house? If I ask that question, then actually the way you explain is, so actually, so there is bus stand over there. From the bus stand actually it is at a distance of maybe 100 meters if you travel on that particular road. So that is how actually you are explaining. Now in that statement inherently one point is you are referring with respect to the bus stand. the characteristic of the bus stand is actually that is a fixed location, which everyone knows. So that is the fundamental characteristic. But I cannot explain my house actually, suppose actually if I say that there is a dog over there, near that dog actually my house is there. If I say that actually everybody will laugh, because dog actually is a moving point. It's not a fixed point, right? So the moving point actually you cannot take as the reference. So that is the fundamental characteristic. And the characteristic of this origin is actually it has to be a fixed one, and it has to be very well aware of everyone. So then only actually we can call that as a origin point, or actually that is the starting point. Now, as long as you started at one particular location, which is what we call as the fixed point or the origin, which is a reference point for whatever may be the kind of coordinate system you take it, but you are able to uniquely identify the location of this particular point, and you are assuming that, so there is one standard reference axis called x, and there is one standard reference axis called y. And this x comma y, so these are the random names which were given, and so that actually so everybody is aware of these standard locations by describing the characteristics as by taking 90 degrees to these two straight lines. If you fix a horizontal line and the vertical line, and the angle between them is 90 degrees, now you are creating an environment for the explanation. The environment is there is a horizontal line and there is a vertical line, and these values actually, and everybody is aware that these are the positive values of the x, and these are all the negative values of the x. And again, for y also, these are the positive values of y, and these are all the negative values of the y. Now, with respect to this system, we will explain this point location with respect to this point. So this is an origin, everybody is aware of it, and the axis also actually everybody is very well aware of it, and then you start explaining with this understanding. So to reach this point, the way you explain is, starting from this location, go in this particular direction for a distance of x, and then actually take 90 degrees so that actually you will be in line with the y axis, and then actually travel towards the y direction. So then actually x comma y is the location of this particular point, because you need two different values to uniquely identify with respect to this coordinate system. So this is actually one way of explanation. Now, the same information can be explained in a different manner as well. Suppose actually, so if I ask you to come here, right? So in English actually we can say that actually so come here. So in Hindi actually idhar aao. So in other languages actually we will say something else. Like this actually in different languages, essentially we are conveying the same information. Even here in so in any of the coordinate system also, as long as you are conveying the same information uniquely, that can be called as a coordinate system. Now, this is actually one way of conveying the information. Go in this direction for a distance of x, and go in this direction for a distance of y, you will reach that point. This way of explanation, by taking this system as the coordinate axis, this is called as a Cartesian coordinate system. Right? And the same information actually I will try to explain in a different manner. Now I'll take the same point, which is this reference point. This is O and this is also O. Now rather than taking these coordinates, what I will do is actually I will draw a horizontal line. And this horizontal line actually I will name it as initial line. And this point, the origin actually here we are calling origin, right? And this point actually I am naming this as the pole. This is an initial line, this is a pole. Now I wanted to uniquely identify this point. So the same point actually I have located here. Now the way I can explain this particular point with respect to this system is by taking an angle of theta, travel for a distance of r. So as long as you are able to specify the r value and theta value, it will be corresponding to a single point in the entire plane. Now r value, theta value, if you specify it and define the coordinate system as the horizontal line and the starting point as the pole, then the same information is conveyed in a different way. It's a kind of different language for it, right? So this actually is the angle theta, and this r value will specify this unique point. Now actually, if I wanted to specify this particular point, now again actually it is the same r value. The r value actually it's not different. Maybe the same length. The length actually is corresponding to the r value. And then actually this angle, the angle here actually it needs to be mentioned. And this angle is actually theta 1. R1 and theta 1 value, if you specify it, then actually I can uniquely identify this particular point. And this point actually, so this way of representing the information is called as the polar coordinate system. So this is a polar coordinate system. Now, this is a Cartesian coordinate system. This is a polar coordinate system. The name is coming from the fact that, so the mathematician Descartes, he invented this kind of system, and certainly this name is coming from Descartes. So that is why it is a Cartesian coordinate system. And this is actually the polar coordinate system. Why? Because so there is a pole along with an initial line. So hence actually this is a polar coordinate system. Now usually actually we will try to overlap one on top of it. So that's why actually many people will get confused. So this is a different kind of coordinate system. This is a different kind of coordinate system. And as long as you are able to uniquely explain the same thing with different kind of methodology, that can also be called as a coordinate system. So you can think of infinite number of ways of explaining this. Everything can be called as a coordinate system. So but actually most popularly, we are very well aware of only these two type of coordinate system in the case of the plane coordinate system, right? Now actually, as there are two different languages are there, obviously actually we can expect a dictionary, right? Like the way actually, even here also what we do, we will try to overlap. So this point overlaps to here, this point overlaps to here. And then actually the horizontal line actually is still the initial line as well as the x-axis if you combine both of the coordinate system. And this angle we call this as theta. And the same location actually can even be represented with x comma y, or can even be represented with r comma theta. Now as there are two different ways of representing it, you can identify the relation as, you know that this length is x and this length is y. And this if you call as r can be expressed as x square plus y square under root. And theta can be called as tan inverse of y by x. Right? And this is the conversion, if you know the xy values, into the polar coordinate system. The other way is actually, you can identify from r comma theta, x can even be expressed as x is equal to r cos theta and y is equal to r sin theta. If you know the polar coordinates, you will be able to express the Cartesian coordinate system. So this is how actually you will be understanding the planar coordinate system. The same kind of methodology is extended for a three-dimensional coordinate system. So in the case of the three-dimensional coordinate system, so there are actually any number of three-dimensional coordinate systems we can think of, but most popularly we will work with three different kinds of coordinate system. One is the Cartesian coordinate system, and the second one is cylindrical coordinate system, and third one is spherical coordinate system. Right? So why actually these names are coming is from the fact that actually, so the kind of cylinder shape actually you can expect in specifying the dimensions for a cylindrical coordinate system. A kind of spherical shape you can expect, or actually the problems related to sphere actually can easily be solved with the help of the spherical coordinate system. That's why actually we have to be aware of all the three coordinate systems. In the Cartesian coordinate system, actually it's like a planar xy coordinate system, but extended for one more value. That is, in the room actually, if you wanted to identify the fan location, left bottom corner if you fix as the origin, the location of the fan can be expressed in terms of x comma y comma z, which represents the x length, y length and z length. So this is the Cartesian coordinate system in 3D. So x comma y comma z are the points. Now, what is a cylindrical coordinate system is? A cylindrical coordinate system, except for z, the same kind of xy, whatever we have manipulated in the case of the polar coordinate system plus z. Together actually it will form the cylindrical coordinate system. That means r and theta, like the same way whatever we have defined in the case of the polar coordinate system, it's exactly the replica. That means the relation here it is r value is x square plus y square under root and theta value is tan inverse of y by x. Right? And this value actually, if you wanted to convert, if you know the Cartesian coordinate system, you will be able to identify the cylindrical coordinate system. And z value is z if you compare with the Cartesian coordinate system. So z as it is replicated, x, y are converted in terms of r comma theta. Now why the name is cylindrical coordinate system is, and r comma theta, by fixing a constant value of r, by changing the angle from 0 to 360 degrees, it will make a circle. And that circle actually for z is equal to minus infinity to plus infinity, which is the complete variation of z, so which represents a vertical cylinder like this. So r comma theta represents a circle and Z represents like a cylinder, hence the name is actually cylindrical coordinate system. Where are we using this cylindrical and spherical coordinate system? So cylindrical and spherical coordinate systems actually we will be using to identify the electromagnetic fields with the help of the Gauss law. So we will be using it, the Ampere's circuital law, we will be using this. To derive the Maxwell's equations, these coordinate systems are important. And also actually when the wave is traveling, so we will be using the Cartesian coordinate system in 3 dimensions. Suppose if it happened to be so that was given in terms of the cylindrical coordinate system or spherical coordinate system, the rules will be exactly the same. Got it? Yeah, so whatever I taught in foundation also, that is sufficient enough. And then actually here the spherical coordinate system, if you say the same kind of information, actually it was done in a different manner. Now let us say the same fan point you can identify in the case of this spherical coordinate system is, suppose if I draw from left bottom corner, which we assume as the origin, draw a straight line to the fan directly. So in the space actually we have drawn a straight line like this, and that value actually we call this as the rho, which is the radial length from the origin directly to the fan point. And then actually you identify the angle to that R value with respect to the Z axis. So Z axis is the vertical axis, and let us say this is the Z axis. Now actually this is the R actually which is pointing to the fan. So this is the location of the fan. Now this is being the Z axis vertically there. This angle we call this as the Z. But XY values, if you notice, it is actually in the plane of the XY but not aligning with any of the X axis or Y axis. It may not be, right? So this is how the coordinate systems are there. So let us say this is the Z axis. Then actually with respect to Z actually it is making angle. But actually X direction is this one and Y direction is this one. Now actually it is somewhere like this. With respect to Z it is making an angle theta. Hence actually as Z is vertical and R is in this direction, rho is in this direction, it makes an angle of theta. Hence this Z value is equal to R cos theta. But this is on the XY plane. So this is on the XY plane. Hence actually if you project this point onto the XY plane, that will be coming somewhere here. Now the way you can do it actually, suppose actually if the fan got dropped onto the ground, let us say. Now that location, if you notice, the fan is dropping on the ground, meaning it is neither on the X axis nor on the Y axis. It will be somewhere in the middle of the room. Now that location actually, so that is the center point. So that's exactly this one. So this is the location of the fan which dropped onto the XY plane. Now this length, if you try to draw it, let us call this as R, and this R length will be rho sin theta. That is, once the fan got dropped onto the ground, draw a line from the origin on the ground to the fan. Now that is this length. So this value will be rho sin theta because this XY plane and this Z axis will be always perpendicular to each other. Hence this is of rho cos theta. And then, so rho sin theta. And the vertical length will be the projection of this. So this is going to be Z cos theta. And like the polar coordinate system, if you wanted to identify the value of X, so this is the value of X. So this X value is this R times of cos phi. So where phi is this angle. So phi is actually, if you draw the line to the fan where it got dropped out with respect to the X axis, that angle actually we call this as angle phi. And then actually the same projection onto the Y. So this value will be, so R sin phi. So this is the value of Y. That means X can be rho sin theta cos phi. Y can be rho sin theta sin phi. Like this actually you can identify the value of Z equal to rho cos theta in the case of the spherical coordinate system, right? But essentially we are conveying the same thing. But if you notice, in the Cartesian coordinate system, we'll be using all the 3 different lengths. In cylindrical coordinate system, 1 angle, 2 lengths. In spherical coordinate system, 2 angles and 1 radial length. So the number of angles actually we have keep on increasing. But with all the 3 angles actually we cannot make a coordinate system. So that's actually 2 angles and 1 particular length, which will represent a 3-dimensional coordinate system. So like this actually, if you know the Cartesian values, then actually you will be able to identify the values of X, Y, Z actually. If you know the cylindrical spherical values, you can calculate the X, Y, Z values. If you know the other way also, you can do it. Suppose actually here r theta z actually we have expressed in terms of x, y, z values, which are the Cartesian equivalent. Now, if you know the r theta values and z values, you can identify the x, y, z values. So cylindrical coordinates conversion, the x is equal to r cos theta, y equal to r sin theta, and z is equal to z. So this is actually from the cylindrical coordinate system to the Cartesian coordinate system. This is Cartesian coordinate system to the cylindrical coordinate system. Same is the case actually spherical coordinate system. Cartesian coordinate system to the spherical coordinate system, spherical coordinate system to the Cartesian coordinate system, you can do this. So this is spherical values, if you know it, then x is equal to rho sin theta cos phi, y equal to rho sin theta sin phi, and z is equal to rho cos theta. So like this actually you can convert, if you know the cylindrical coordinate system, if you know the spherical coordinate system, then actually you can identify the values of the Cartesian coordinates. And if you know the Cartesian values, you can convert into the spherical coordinate systems as well. How we are going to convert is, we know that actually this value is going to be of x, and this value is going to be of y, and this value is going to be of z. Now from this, you can identify the value of rho s, which is the length from this origin to this point, and this location can even be represented as x comma y comma z. This length rho is equal to, I'll just write it, rho is equal to x square plus y square plus z square, because there is the length from the origin to that particular point in three-dimensional space. And we can identify the value of theta. So this theta is, you know that z is equal to r cos theta, and then so z is equal to rho cos theta. Z is equal to rho cos theta, and rho value also we know that. Then cos theta is equal to z by rho, which is x square plus y square plus z square under root. Like this actually you can calculate the value of theta in terms of z by x square plus y square plus z square under root. And if you want to calculate the value of phi, and you know that this is equal to x and this is equal to y, and the angle is phi, which is this particular point, which we can call this as the xy projected onto the plane. And then phi can be expressed as tan inverse of y by x. So like this, you can convert any coordinate system to any other coordinate. You can convert from these two also, but that is not important for us. Got it? Is this understood? Basic coordinate systems. Fine. So with this actually I'd like to stop the class for today. In the next class actually I'll describe a little bit about the waves, and then actually we'll proceed on to the topic. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.